Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast presented by Zwift, the online training platform that makes cycling fun. Here with Benji for the Paris-Tirreno-Adriatico Saturday Queen Stage double header. Paris Stage 7 first. It's the only mountaintop finish of this race. Had a couple of sleepy stages, but this one finishes on Turini. We knew we'd have a shootout. 156 Ks, one warm-up climb, but everyone should have domestiques ready at the base for the 15.2 Ks, 7.2% of Turini. We have the last 4 Ks at about 8.3%. So differences could be made on this climb. It's well over 20 minutes long. And yeah, Primoz Roglič having to defend the yellow jersey. Who we have in the breakaway, Benji? Did Godu get in the break and then get dropped out of the break?
Well, before we get to that point, I want to talk about who tried to go in the breakaway initially in the stage, and Wout van Aert tried to attack.
Oh, really?
Early on in the first 20 kilometers of the stage, was gone for like 4 kilometers trying to chase down Group 1, and was unable to catch, and then was caught by the peloton. So that was intriguing. I'm not sure why, but it happened. Now, when it comes to Jumbo-Visma, Teunissen did not start today to prep for his classics to make sure, I don't know the specific reason, but it was said that he didn't start together with some other riders like Genietz. But the story about Genietz, Kevin Genietz, is actually quite, I wouldn't say interesting because it's bad, but he was moving with his bike before the start towards the starting podium, and one of those like advertisement boards that riders get interviewed for just fell on him, and that's why he's out of the race and injured. So that's a very shitty way to get out of Paris, in my opinion, and it's unfortunate because he was looking good at Omloop and so forth, so I was hoping to see more of him in the coming Cobble Classics. But like you said, there was a breakaway that went away. Godu was in that breakaway, but I never saw Godu actually in the breakaway when it started mattering. So I guess, like you say, he dropped because he had 2 teammates there. I think Pacher and Legac. Next to that, Pedersen was in the breakaway for Trek with Bernard, so 2 riders there. We had 3 riders from Movistar, Mühlberger, Garcia Cortina, and Torres. I was curious to see what Mühlberger was going to do, knowing he had a bit of 2 shitty seasons, and now potentially he might be able to get back into form here. Thomas Gent, Dens, Kees Bol in the breakaway. No Søren Andersen to drop him halfway through the stage. Simon Carr, Julius Vandenberg, Bonamour, Goujar, Feline, Mullen, and Merku. I've been complaining so much about Merku in the breakaway that he decided to make it his life choice to go in the breakaway every day from now on. And this breakaway didn't get the gap they wanted, I think, because the peloton started chasing him down. And Ineos was one of the teams that actually controlled the breakaway quite a bit during the stage. Jumbo as well. But it was mainly Luke Rowe, I think, during this stage. Are you surprised that the likes of a Luke Rowe is doing stuff like that?
Not really. I mean, Ineos are the ones that need to upset the apple cart here on this stage. They've got Adam Yates at 1:11, Danny Martinez at 56 seconds off Roglič. It's really up to them to try and attack Roglič if they want to win GC here. But taking a minute on this climb it's a big ask, and going for the stage even is hard. But even moving Martinez up from 4th to 2nd or Yates from 6th to 3rd, I think it's their responsibility to pace. Latour is just protecting. He was in 3rd on GC, not the best climber, and Vlasov can't climb over 20 minutes. So, yeah, it's on them. Bike Exchange. But did Bike Exchange really bring the team here, Benji, to do anything? Not really.
Not necessarily, I dare to say.
Lucas Hamilton.
There's a few riders in there that are part of that sprint train of Groenewegen out already, for example. And looking at the rest of the teams, then Arkea is the one that might spice some things up on the final climb. And they started doing that at the bottom of the final climb. We saw that Jumbo was at the front of the peloton going into the Col de Turini. This was with about, 18K, this climb, 16K, something like that. And at the bottom, we see Wout van Aert at the front in like 3rd wheel. One Arkea rider at the front. I'm actually not sure which one it was that was pacing at that point in the race, but he was putting quite some pressure, and it took about 2 minutes before Wout van Aert was off the bike.
I know, he self-dropped again, protecting himself, and Ineos really looked a bit toothless outside of their leaders, like Freyler, Hayter, Dylan van Baal, Amador. These guys couldn't really set any hard pace. It was all down to Arkea. which is surprising. And we're seeing something even similar at Tirreno. So, yeah, honestly, I expected Freyler to be able to really reduce a group, Benji. He was good in the Tour last year, and yeah, I'm just surprised. But it was really archaic setting it up, but it was Adam Yates going first, attacking that group. I think this makes a lot of sense because really Roglič has to close it. Like Nairo won't, Simon Yates won't. They're twins. And yeah, it's so far out that Roglič has to close it. Did you agree with the way, or did Nairo attack and try and bridge across?
Well, at first you were right that Adam Yates was the one that was doing the tempo here and was making sure that he was getting away. He attacked and made that gap. And this was after Kruijswijk already did a bit of a pull and was gone. So like you said, Roglič was basically isolated. Rohan Dennis had done his work, and that's when they were dropped. So that Adam Yates attack worked for a bit. Nobody really responded. And it was then actually Roglič that made a move, but we didn't see it because suddenly it got to 3 riders responding. Still not with Adam Yates, but that was Roglič, Quintana, and another rider in their wheel.
Danny Martinez.
Oh, yeah, Danny Martinez it was. You're right. Correct. And those 3 riders did catch up with Adam Yates again. But we know when those 3 riders are catching up, we've got an Ineos rider getting caught, an Ineos rider in the wheel of Roglič. What's going to happen? Rolling over attacks, of course. And Danny Martinez started making quite a decent dig, I'd dare to say, that actually put some pressure on the group. And who are the victims of that? Because they were suddenly with 2 at the front.
Roglič snapped close to Martinez. We have Simon Yates then pacing Quintana for a long time. Strong work from Simon Felipe Yates. The documentary on his life apparently being released shortly by Bike Exchange. Adam Yates was on the back of that group. The next group, now group 3, was Almeida, Haig being paced by Pools, Vlasov, Maori, Guillaume Martin, Yoni Zagira. So the guys in the 5th to 10th on GC battling it out there. Vlasov looking in trouble. And Roglič attacking just makes so much sense. If you're isolated and you have a minute buffer, the only way he loses a minute on this climb, and he's not sick, so he's fine, the only way he loses a minute is if he sits up and makes a Peresud Pogačar Stage 8 tactical mistake where he's like, you close it. And then 30 seconds go, and then they're pacing. But if he just sets his pace for the majority of the climb, gets to the last 3Ks, he can't lose GC. So that's the way he approached it. And then tactically, Martinez started pulling with him, which I agree with. Sometimes I'm like, no, make the, sit on, finesse. But at the end of the day, Adam Yates was in big difficulty. Martinez is a minute back. He's behind Simon Yates on GC. Why not work with Roglič and offer pulls? And I don't think he was doing 100% of his limit anyway.
I agree in that aspect. They want to keep the gap on the riders behind. They want to make sure that the advantage that they gained is not necessarily gone, but they also keep in their mind, oh, this other guy could counter me at any point and therefore drop me. So they're not going to go all out at that point in the race. It's still quite a few kilometers to go. I think 4 or 5 at that point in the race. But we started seeing that Simon Yates was single-handedly bringing Quintana back. And Quintana didn't really help Simon Yates much in that, not going to lie. But Simon Yates just kept going, and they came closer and closer when Martinez and Roglič started looking at each other a bit. And Adam Yates was already dropped at that point from those 2 riders chasing, Quintana and Simon Yates. So there was really no point anymore at that point for Martinez to sit up because he was going to get Quintana and Simon Yates with him again. So in the end, those 4 riders came back together, and behind the scenes, quite a few riders switched places and so forth. Certain riders started dropped certain riders. UAE was looking bad in the middle of the climb, and then suddenly they started popping up in 5th and 7th position or something on the climb. So that was looking better, but it was all coming down towards that front group now, and who is going to make moves there? That is the real question. Who did you think was going to make moves, and who did it in the end?
I thought Nairo would try and counter if he had the legs. It turns out he didn't. He'd been brought back by Simon Felipe Yates. He's so far behind Roglič on GC that if he attacks with 1,500 meters to go or 2Ks to go, I had a feeling Roglič would look at Martinez and Simon Yates to close it, because he's not making 2 minutes back then. But he didn't have the legs, and it actually got to the point where, and look out for the article on Monday from me and Raul Bancheri on lanternrouge.com.au about the relegation points battle. It looked like he started riding for about 4th on GC, 5th on GC Nairo, because the group was coming back. Haig always does his set tempo on these climbs, these long climbs. He was coming back. Almeida was coming back. Almeida even nearly got to this group. Yeah. And before we get into the finale, which you know what's coming, I need to remind everybody, next Saturday, Milano-San Remo, first monument of the year, Zwift LRCP group ride. We're going to do it before the Cipressa. Make sure you follow Lanterne Rouge CP on Twitter for updates and details on timing, and we'll give you a reason to watch along or make a positive out of watching Milano-San Remo before the Cipressa. So make sure you join us on Zwift next Saturday for that watch along. Thanks to Zwift for supporting the show. But to answer your question short, Benji, Roglič was winning. If you go to the final 500 meters of this stage with Roglič, like if there's no pog, there's one winner. Like we don't need we've seen it 100 times. Well, 40 times, not 100 yet. But yeah, that's my short answer, Benji. Like, I don't think Yates, Quintana could really have done anything different. Yates tried 2 more times to attack, didn't work, and we knew it was coming.
Yeah, certainly. I agree on that. There's nothing they could have done necessarily. Quintana, like you said, started pacing a little bit every single time that he was dropped and then came back for those points, like you mentioned. And it was up to the final 500 meters. And actually, it took longer than I thought it would, because sometimes Roglič last year would make this kind of move, this acceleration with about 500 meters to go, or 600 or 400, and already make a bit of a gap before the finish line. But he seemed to wait a bit longer here. And I was waiting. I was looking at him. Is there a position on the left he could go? On the right he could go, waiting for the gap to open up. But even when the gaps opened up, he waited until 200 meters to go to really make a kick on the left side of the road. He passed everybody, went into this left steering bend, not a steep bend, but one that just goes straight to the finish line. And from that point onwards, it instantly looked like a gap opened up behind him, and it was a done deal, right?
Yep. I'm surprised they even credited Martinez with the same time as him.
Yeah.
Roglič wins the stage in Roglič style, sprint from 200 out, ahead of Martinez, who was very, very good, has to be said. Simon Yates third on 2 seconds, Nairo on 9 seconds, Almeida McNulty 11 and 25. They look good. Haig on 27. Adam Yates dropped after attacking early on 29. Guillaume Martin actually rode the climb very smartly, did his best job here on 9th, 44 seconds, moves up on GC. A lot of positions, pulls 10th. Vlasov on 1:13. It's just not, you can't compete for GC Grand Tours losing 1:13 on this climb. You can't. Like, Haig is what I would say a consistent diesel climber who's never winning these stages. He's on 27, and Vlasov like 1:13. Like, it's just a 20-minute climbing thing. I was surprised. He loses a lot of spots. Pierre Latour loses a lot of spots. The revised GC Roglič on 47 seconds ahead of Simon Yates. Martinez moves into third on 1 minute. Adam Yates on 1:50. I'm not surprised by what happened, Benji. I would have been surprised if Roglič got dropped, to be honest. But tomorrow's stage, 115 Ks, the one Roglič lost Paris GC on last year. It's just as tricky as ever. They're doing basically a lap around Nice on these hilly 6K, 7% climbs. They do cold airs, which crests about 16 Ks from the finish, 6.1K, 7.6%. I'd like to see Bahrain try Vuelta Stage 20 again, Benji.
I think it's going to be really hard to do so on this stage. I know that it's got quite some hills to go early, but in all honesty, I've got the feeling that the earliest climb that you can go on seems to be the Côte de Pay, which is with about 60K to go roughly, because the ones before, yes, they exist, but are you going to go that early? I'm not so certain about it. Are you going to put people in the breakaway? Ideally, yes, on a stage like this, because it's short and snappy, and therefore having satellite riders of the road can be very handy. but I don't think Haig also wants to ruin it all by going too early, and therefore, if he has a satellite rider up the road, I don't see him attacking. I might not even see him attacking on the Côte de Bay, to be honest, and I think most of the action will be on the Col d'Aise.
I think Bahrain should try something. They've got pools that can get in the break. He's not a GC threat. He's on 10 minutes,
Agree.
but he's on fine form. He's punchy. Look, he finished this stage in 10th after pacing for Haig. I'd get pools in the break, see if Bahrain can get something going, move Haig up to third on GC, fourth on GC. I don't think Adam Yates... I don't see Ineos trying something spectacular here. I might eat my words, Benji, but they kind of look a bit beaten. I'm not sure Frailer's on the best form.
I'm actually not as bearish on Frailer as you are. I feel like he's the better one of the rest in the squad.
True.
The ones
Amador.
I'm disappointed in is Amador, because we haven't seen anything from Amador since the second he went to Ineos. He had some drama coming to Ineos, but that doesn't influence anything too much there. What I'm most intrigued by is the very unimportant battle for the 15th spot between Mauri van Sevenand and Bauke Mollema.
Dude, what is Mollema doing at this race? Like, I don't know. I'd like to see the Americans in the break again tomorrow, McNulty and Jorgensen. McNulty's legs are outstanding. He'd be a very, very difficult man to beat. It's also a stage Vlasov might try something. I think Cofidis should also be aggressive. I think Guillaume Martin, Jonas Aguirre is a good descender. I think they should try and move up some spots as well. It's always a stage you have to watch from start to finish. Anything can happen on the stage. It's one of those must-watch stages. I think Wout needs to pick it up tomorrow, Benji. I don't think he should be doing the self-dropping, protecting himself for classics. I think he needs to work as a domestique tomorrow for Primoz.
I think so as well. He should be there because it's a dangerous stage compared to this one. On a stage like this, if Wout van Aert drops at the start of the final climb, we know that there's just X amount of kilometers that Roglič might be isolated towards the end of the climb. And we know that Roglič is one of the better climbers here, so it would be relatively surprising if he cannot drop at least 3 of the best 7 climbers here at this race. And therefore, he can control 4 riders towards the last 3 kilometers, as we saw today. Now, if you look at tomorrow's stage, it's much harder when it comes to the tactics that could be used to control it solely alone. Now, I do think that the team he has is better on the parkour of tomorrow than today. Definitely in this race, because we got to keep in mind, because is not here, Vingegaard is not here, so the riders that are here are the kind of riders that on paper should do better in a medium mountain stage and a proper mountain finish, I'd argue. And if Wout van Aert is not helping him tomorrow, he could get into trouble at a certain point. We saw last year that he crashed and it led to Sharkman winning the race. And therefore, Wout van Aert should stay with him, because last year he didn't have that flat support between the climbs to keep pacing, to make sure the gap opened up by that crash was closed. And it's more as a insurance policy that I put Wout van Aert with him than necessarily a rider that needs to work hard with him.
Exactly. It's just in case something goes wrong. You know, David de la Cruz is here. He's on 11th on GC. He won this stage 2 years in a row back in 17, 18.
Yeah.
Jonas Aguirre has won this stage before. I think guys are going to try something, and you need team guys around you. Dennis has been outstanding, but it can't just be him. And Mike has gone home today, Mike Turnison, as well during the stage. So I think Wout needs to be there in case something goes wrong for Primoz. Because yes, it's a minute, but if shit hits the fan, you can lose a minute very fast. Can't wait to watch it. I'm picking McNulty from the break. Who are you going with?
I'm picking Frank Bonamour of BNB.
Oh, I'm jealous of that. Yeah, that's a smart pick. He looks so good. All right, that was Paris Stage 7. It played out the way we expected, but enjoyable nonetheless.